Welcome to my September wrap-up, a tale of two authors, R.R. Virdi and Jim Butcher. You might be wondering, what kind of tale are you about to tell? Is it a tragedy? Why, surely, because one of these journeys ended in flames. Is it a quest? Well, certainly. A quest to discover a new author, and a quest to rediscover an old favorite and see if he deserves his rightful place in my heart. Is it a myth? Well, that's for you to decide. Have I just been pretending to love all of the Dresden Files books? Have I been planting seeds on BookTube and Goodreads and Discord to grow my reputation as the mightiest mega Dresden fan in all the land, so that BookTube will know my name? They will know Genghis Khan. End scene. What you just experienced was a little taste of what it was like for me to read the first binding. I tried to deliver that opening in the style of R.R. Virdi. If you were captivated by that, there is a chance that this book could be for you. But I warn you, this was boring pretty much from start to finish for me, and a huge disappointment. So I pretty much just read this one in September over the course of the whole month, and the last 8 Dresden books, which were rereads. And thank goodness I had the Dresden books to keep me entertained, because this one was an epic disaster of a read for me. I wanted to love this one so much. I wanted to try an epic fantasy new release. I wanted to get in on the ground floor of a new and rising author and be a mega fan from the beginning. And it was just not to be. I'm maybe going to be the only person who reads the first binding who's not going to say how much of a ripoff of Name of the Wind it is. I've never read The Name of the Wind. I'm coming at this fresh and on its own merits, on its own storytelling. I was not engaged by almost any of these 817 long pages. So, I really wanted to love it, though, because Virdi has an inspiring story. I really loved seeing his interviews. It got a lot of big hype. But I don't think I'm going to be continuing with the series. The writing just does not connect with me. I tend to like suspenseful plotting, and I like action scenes sprinkled throughout my books often. I like interesting world building and setting details. I like to be exposed to thought-provoking and interesting ideas. And if my fantasy book is not going to have any of those, I at least want to get invested in the characters and for it to be an interesting character study. But this one failed on that front as well. I didn't care at all about the older Ari who's telling his life story for a lot of this book. And I think he's intentionally left very mysterious, but that doesn't leave us a lot to latch onto with him. And then the younger Ari just goes through seems like a very cliched, typical kind of orphan coming-of-age tale, going through various challenging portions of his life until he ends up at a magical school. And none of these chunks engaged me. I was always thinking, oh, when it reaches this point, it's going to start getting good. Then we got into the backstory, and then I was bored. But okay, when we just reach a future point, it's going to get there, and I'm going to be hooked. But that point never came, and by the end, I was just regretting that I had picked it up, since I was just so bored by most of it. But I'm glad I finished, so I know for sure that it's not for me, and I don't have to feel like I'm missing out on anything. I am really not sure who the audience for this is. I know some people have liked it, but I can't recommend it really for anyone, because I really don't think it did anything particularly well. And if it did have something to say, it was probably about how people can build a reputation for themselves through lies or exaggerations, or telling stories about themselves and people spreading them and gossiping, maybe through luck and happenstance. It's just not a theme that is particularly fascinating to me. I don't even love reading about real-world myths, and there were some long chapters in here that were just in-world myth kind of retellings by different storyteller characters. And If I wish those that were the only chapters though that kind of didn't engage me. I wasn't hooked by any of this, and I'm so sad because I really, really wanted to love it. But I'm going to be probably unhauling this and bring it to a used bookstore. But yeah, bit of a disappointment there. What was not disappointing though was my Dresden reread. I was already having a blast last month with books 3 through 9, and then this though, starting at book 10 with Small Favor up through Battleground, some of my favorite books in the world, so I was pretty excited for the reread, and they did not disappoint. Starting with Small Favor, just a blast of a book, has some really incredible action scenes, but this is the point in the series where the action is really epic in terms of its creativity and tension, but also with the meaning for all the characters. And at this point in the series, at book 10, is when I feel like the internal conflicts within Harry, our only POV character, are really escalating. His interactions with his friends and acquaintances and enemies are all really deep, and the people we know and also care about and who are supporting him, helping him sometimes accomplish what he needs to, sometimes challenging him, doubting him even. And this stretch of the series from book 10 onwards is just magnificent. 5 stars for Small Favor. And then Turncoat on reread, probably one of the biggest improvements for me. I was just blown away by the character things going on in Turncoat, and the multiple climaxes near the end were stunning and tense. Just absolutely love this one on reread. 5 stars for Turncoat. And then Changes. I am not going to be hipster and say this one didn't live up to what I remembered, or it's not as good as everyone says. No, this book is stunning from the first sentence to the last. Some of the most meaningful, tense character things and action scenes I've ever read. Just an absolutely wonderful transition point in this series to shake things up, and just as good on reread pretty much as when it completely just blew my mind on first read. So love Changes. 5 stars, of course. And then after Changes, you'd think, oh, how could he possibly follow that up? Well, he does it perfectly with Ghost Story. This was just a completely different kind of Dresden Files story, and it involved some flashbacks that are just incredible, and some of the world building in here is just wonderful, and some really touching things. I absolutely love this as a follow-up to Changes. 5 stars for Ghost Story. And then you have 2 fast-paced, just bangers with Cold Days and Skin Game. I mean, I just love these books. I loved them when I first read them. I think I reread them not too long after, and then this was my 3rd read of each one. Just some amazing lore drops in Cold Days. Really important series-spanning things happening. And Skin Game as well. Just amazing, fun, tense action scenes, but that have a very deep meaning for the whole rest of the series and for the characters. So just absolutely fun and meaningful stories here. Love these 2. And 5 stars for both. Which takes me to the most recent duology with Peace Talks and Battleground. Now, Peace Talks, on first read, when I read it on release, it left me wanting because it ends with one of the craziest cliffhangers you could possibly imagine, and I had to wait 3 months to keep going with the story. So I was feeling a little cheated. I think I was just so caught up in wanting to continue that I didn't appreciate this full story for what it was. And it really does tell a complete tale and has some of the most intense character and relationship moments really in all of the books. Just really, really tense and great Dresden book on its own. This time around, 5 stars for Peace Talks. And then Battleground. So Battleground is one of my favorite books, I think, of all time, from any author. Every page is just dripping with tension, with energy, and oh man, the action here is amazing. the character stuff going on within all the action is really compelling. There's pretty much nothing that I dislike about this book, and I cannot wait for the series to continue, but it offered so much value on reread. It was just a great way to keep me sane as I was reading the first binding, which was just never ending. And I didn't help, I think, the first binding that I was reading some of my favorite books of all time that are fast-paced and doing so many things that I love so well. And the first binding is just a completely different kind of book. But that being said, similar styles of stories that I've read, like Assassin's Apprentice and the Farseer trilogy, or Empire of Silence, first book of the Sun Eater series, they were much more compelling. I cared so much about their POV main character who's telling this first-person retrospective tale, but that just didn't happen in the first binding, and that's just, I think Verity is just, his writing's just not for me, and it's such a shame. In terms of what I'm reading now and going to read in October, I'm in a Mistborn Era 2 reread to prepare for the Lost Metal, so I haven't read those in a few years, and so I reread Alloy of Law just now and enjoyed it a lot all over again, and I'm in the middle of Shadows of Self and liking that, and I'll probably finish Bands of Morning up soon, and then I'm not too sure. Maybe I'll see what I'm in the mood for, but I'm really wanting to start the Warlord Chronicles with the Winter King soon, so I think that might be on deck for me. And another really fun thing just happened, which was I went on Book Jeopardy. Technically that's not in September, but I just wanted to mention it. I went on the Library of Alexandria's channel and had a great time with Philip and Kyle, and Alan's questions were just fantastic. So check that out if you want to see all of us trying to answer questions about fantasy books and classics and things like that. And that's about it for me, so I'll see you next time.